So, I got a very interesting question on Twitter the other day about self-image and it being difficult to move on after a relationship with a narcissist. And I thought I'd share the answer with you because this is really common and deconstructing it might actually be helpful. So the tweet specifically said, not being able to feel at peace anymore after moving on from a narcissist. Having constant doubts about my self-image, unnecessary trust issues, not feeling worthy around anyone after, and having trauma responses with tiny triggers. And the second tweet said, it's hard to believe outside validation. I see myself in a bad light, despite being complimented, because I always think of my flaws. Unnecessary trust issues equals doubting the current partner, their intentions, because of my trauma. And not completely worthy being alone either. So here I'd like to offer a reframe to understand something about the self-worth and this feeling unworthy and how narcissists are able to hack at our self-worth in order to manipulate us better and make us also self-sabotage with them. And this also means that going forward, we still remain vulnerable and it really makes life complicated if we want to build a healthy relationship. One of the first things toxic people do is they try to isolate people from their social circle, their friends and family and their environment in order to make them vulnerable. And this ties in very clearly to the notion of self-worth. When we grow up, we have interactions with all of our family and friends, and these people help us build up some notion of self-worth. Compared to them, we get some kind of affirmation, and we find our place in society. As we have healthy interactions with them, their feedback, the way they see us, helps us understand our value around the people who really count for us. Usually by triangulating, we get some idea of how people perceive us, and that also helps us get a better understanding if our self-perception is roughly in line with the way other people perceive us or not. Of course, if this social circle is unhealthy, that will be affecting our self-worth. But in this case, we have multiple people feeding into our notion of self-worth, and we have a long experience with them, and also we care about what they think. We have some idea of their values, we have a track record of them over time, and we see the way they act, and we see if they're roughly trustworthy or not. We might make mistakes, but overall, if we have multiple people, even if a few of them are toxic, overall, not all of them are. Now what happens is, a toxic person comes along, and they love judging others. They will resent your self-worth because you arrived there without them. What if they told you that your self-worth was actually really small and you disagree? Well, then it becomes a struggle to see who is right. So how do they do this? First of all, they try to break your link with the people around you. They typically will say that this person is actually envious of you and this person wants to control you and this other person is just jealous. And by doing that, they try to isolate people from their surrounding. Cults do exactly this. If you know someone who joins an organization and they start fighting with siblings and relatives and friends, and they stop talking to long-term friends, then this looks like some form of cult. If it functions the same way, then it probably produces the same outcomes and the same results. If they didn't isolate you, what would happen is they would try attacking your self-worth, and you would simply check back to your friends and family who would fill up your self-worth by saying, come on, here's some perspective. You know how good you are. You know how talented you are. You know how it works. Don't doubt yourself because of this random person who showed up in your life. By having links with friends and family who are trustworthy, you are less vulnerable. So they cut this off. Once they cut it off, it makes it far easier for them to attack your self-worth and actually start saying, it's not as high as you thought. One of the best ways to do that actually is by starting to compliment, by saying how amazing you are, how much more talented you are, how jealous everyone else is. And once you start listening to them and you give them the power to judge, then of course they get to judge whichever way they want. And something that toxic people love is to put you up on a pedestal and then knock you down and watch you crawl and fall and be in pain. They adore that. So once you hand over the power to the narcissist, what happens is, instead of you simply reflecting and assessing what your self-worth is and deciding what works for you, you ask the other person what they think, and whatever they tell you is your conclusion. And if you don't agree, they will attack you and they will fight you. So the problem is, once they are out of the picture, how do you know what your self-worth is? They're no longer telling you, and they probably knocked it down so it's really as low as possible. You can't judge yourself anymore because maybe you didn't really learn how, and normally we rely on the friends and family to tell us because we trust them, but they're no longer there. So all we remember is the criticism that the others made. And the thing with the criticism is that part of it might be true, but the end result isn't improvement. It isn't to help you grow. The end result is to knock you down and create pain. So provided that's the end result, it's just a form of manipulation. If I criticize you with things that are completely untrue, you won't listen to me. But if I make some elements of truth and some exaggerations, you won't know which is which. Provided you trust me, I get to control you. The intention is paramount. That's why if there's any lie or any deceit or any level of manipulation that's involved, that is a manipulation, I suggest just disregarding the whole thing. There might be some good elements in there. It just takes one or two bad elements to really disregard everything and just stop listening to them. So back to the tweet. The problem for this person now is that she's seeing someone else, a new person. And the new person is seeing that she's got certain qualities, like everyone, and probably certain negative sides. And this person might be having a balanced overview. They might simply be focusing on the positives, but they see something that she no longer sees or she no longer believes in. Because what might have happened is that she's delegated this responsibility to the narcissist. The narcissist came and said, all of the things that you think are positive about you are not positive. As long as she still believes this, then she won't be believing someone who comes along and actually views the positives as being positives. This is one of the reasons why it's a mistake to rush from one relationship into another one if we haven't done the healing yet. Let's imagine we can rate the self-worth between 0 and 10. And walking into this relationship, she said that she was at 7 out of 10, which isn't bad. 7 out of 10 doesn't usually indicate a massive ego. It's, rather positive, somewhat balanced. But then the narcissist came and said, you're not at 7 out of 10, you're at 1 out of 10. And the narcissist came and attacked all of the positive sides. At one point, we should be able to take a step back and say, you might be right, but your behavior is pretty crap, so I'm not going to listen to you because just the whole mindset, the intention of hurting me isn't working for me. Now, if a new person comes along and says, well, I see some rather nice things, 4 out of 10, but there's still good things there. If we are believing that 1 out of 10 is accurate, then the 4 out of 10 doesn't appear accurate. We assume there's some kind of game going on. We assume they're lying to us. Or if they actually view it, maybe they're giving value to something that has no value in our eyes anymore. And this is a common issue. We see no value, somebody else likes it, so we start disregarding them. After all, what does it say about someone who likes something that we ourselves have stopped liking? This is why rebuilding our self-worth is so important. One of the ways of doing it is reconnecting with friends and family, reconnecting and rebuilding those relationships. It's working with a therapist, and it's doing the activities that help us develop our sense of self-worth. It's also getting all of the habits that help us do so, getting enough sleep, eating real food, exercising, acting as though we loved ourselves. If we act as though we love ourselves, at one point we might start loving ourselves again, and once we love ourselves, maybe it'll be easier for us to accept that someone else comes along and actually loves us. Reading these tweets, what would you say to this person? Please share this in the comments, and thank you for watching.